3, 2, 1, go. I didn't realize Warner Brothers distributed this.
Yeah, a New Line Cinema.
Yeah, New Line. Is that still independent, or has that been bought up by like what Disney now or something?
Yeah, I think it says
Oh yeah, Time Warner.
Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like the pixelated intro graphics.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
goes back to the 1980s arcades.
yeah, and I like this 93. You see, I always love the fade in text that just gets you there.
Yeah, delivers a bit of exposition.
I suppose that's a strike against it already. Oh, we're bombarded with expedition. It's 3 lines. It's not going to wear you down. So why this flick, mate?
Well, its reputation preceded it. I haven't seen this movie. I missed it in cinemas. I only saw it for the first time a couple of days ago. So I wanted to when a film is just getting dogpiled on, I that's just a red flag to a bull for me. I want to go and find it and find out if the pile on is warranted. Because an internet dog pile is the easiest thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes to jump on. There's so many comments I want to make about the film. It doesn't deserve the reputation it's got. It's not the worst thing I've seen this week. It's not even the worst thing I've seen today. um, so I was quite surprised by the reception it got when it came out. It has been sort of re-examined in the interim, where it's looked at a bit more fondly. But yeah, it was absolutely slaughtered upon release. I have a couple of theories why, and I'll sort of point them out as we get to it. But it's a yeah, it does what it says on the box. It lives up to its title. There's a lot of sort of cinematic wide scale destruction.
Yeah.
It's a film called Rampage, and I love the power and strength in the name. Is what attracted me to it as well. It's like just in big block letters, Rampage.
I'm sure there would have been like a movement or a petition to tone down the violence in the film. It's a film called Rampage, people. It's kind of got to do what's written on the box, right?
Yeah, it's quite good. I knew of the video game as a boy on the old Commodore 64 and Sega consoles, but I was never kind of a regular avid player of it. It's also kind of surprising. This movie it didn't really lead to a renewed interest in the property. I think it did get a mobile phone tie-in game to coincide with the release, but I think the last game it's had was for the Nintendo Wii. It's called Rampage Ultimate Destruction, I was reading.
Yeah, because isn't it interesting though? Like when the kaiju stuff was really starting to kick off. I mean, I can only handle so many giant monsters and giant robots, before I start to get a little worn down with it. But this was like what? I think Godzilla 2014 happened. Kong Skull Island happened. This came out before the Godzilla King of the Monsters sequel. So I'm kind of surprised that it copped the flack that it did when it was kind of like a nice little bit of like the kaiju craze kicks off. I don't understand why you don't like a film with giant monsters if it's just like the films that you like with giant monsters. It's just more giant monsters, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been really spoiled, haven't we, in the last decade? There's been multiple Godzillas and Kongs, and there's more on the way. I think Netflix are adapting the Nemesis novels, which is another giant monster story as well. They're on their way. So we've been really spoilt if you're fans of this genre.
And then we'll turn around and talk about its superhero fatigue. I mean, the amount, like the conveyor belt that giant monster material is on at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it shows no signs of slowing down. There's definitely more with the critical acclaim and success of these other Godzilla movies and things like that.
Yeah, the video game, like I remember playing it as a kid, I got pretty hung up on Rampage 2 Universal Tour because I liked the second batch of monsters quite a lot. Curtis the Mouse, Boris the Rhino, and Ruby the Crab. I really kind of liked the second batch, especially Boris. I thought the Rhino was really, really cool. And the big horn at the front, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Unit 1.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting you mentioned that because the mutated rat a second ago was I think it was a little nod to some of the later installments where the cast of characters does expand quite a bit. Yeah, I think a couple of rat mutant monsters show up in some of the later installments. I think one of them was called Larry.
Yeah, and there was another one with one eye called Mucus, but it was spelt weird. We got Jack Quaid here, this flog at the back, Dennis's boy. He rocked up in Scream 5, and he's starting to be a bit of a regular thing these days. To be honest with you, I can take him or leave him. You know,
I haven't seen much of his work, but I do know the name.
Yeah, Jack Quaid. You know the Scream 5 poster that was like, the killer is on this poster? Well, no shit. Because it wasn't really well hidden. But anyway, let's talk about the star of this whole thing. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, man. Your thoughts on him?
I think he's terrific. I haven't seen all of his films, but the ones I've seen, I've really enjoyed. His films just sort of, you get your money's worth from his films. They're probably not overly deep and profound, but you don't sort of walk out thinking, I wasn't entertained. And one of the theories I do have about this movie is maybe, like, at this level, fame and success are kind of fleeting, so maybe this sort of marked a turning point where audiences were starting to sour on him. Maybe, I don't know, I still really like him. And this is his third collaboration with the director Brad Peyton. They'd worked on Journey to the Mysterious Island and San Andreas. And,
yeah, that's right, yeah.
So he's been in some absolutely huge movies. I really liked him as Hobbs in the later Fast and Furious movies. I did not get around to Black Adam. I kind of like that character in the comics, but it seemed like a bit of a vanity project for him. But so one of the theories I do have is maybe, well, like, eventually audiences get sick of everyone. Russell Crowe's really good at articulating that kind of sentiment. Eventually they love you until they don't. So maybe this was the first sort of inkling that audiences wanted something more from him. But I really don't know. I still really like him.
Well, and this was post F7, wasn't it?
Yeah, the timeline for me is a bit hazy because I never got around to them until relatively recently. But he's been I think he joined the Fast and Furious saga in Part 5.
Yeah,
from memory. But he's been a mainstay in it pretty much ever since.
I'm still it's funny. Like, I know the film does get its fair share of flack, but I'm still a sucker for 2006's Gridiron Gang.
Yeah, and I loved him in Walking Tall, which is one of his earlier ones.
Yeah, I thought he's really awesome in that film when Sean Porter. I thought he was really good in that. I think he needed to go back and do that because this is like hot off of Jumanji sequel. I think he did that just prior to this, so and Skyscraper was out. Like, those kind of big, like, action extravaganza kind of things. Like, this kind of just seemed a little bit by the numbers. Although I think Rampage is just a little nose in front of Skyscraper. I think people were just kind of a little bit, they wanted something a bit different from him.
Yeah, that could easily be part of it, yeah, because they all just sort of blend into one. And because he's so huge, and he has the problem probably Arnold Schwarzenegger did at his peak, he doesn't really fit the sort of the everyday guy characters.
No, he doesn't.
He's a giant of a man. So, and I know the film needs a convenient way to explain his skill set, but an ex-military soldier / primatologist Yeah, I can imagine him being that guy. Like,
Yeah, I know, but what really bothers me, when they try to, how many boxes can we tick to explain the shit the character needs to do over the course of a film? Well, we'll
yeah,
tie it all into there. One of the ones that really sticks out to me, which was an addition in this particular adaptation that I really had a hard time swallowing, was Robert Neville Will Smith in I Am Legend. Oh, well, he's a military virologist.
yeah,
All
because of course
right,
he
I
is.
guess.
Yeah,
Robert Neville is a fucking schmuck in the original book. Like,
yeah.
why is he a military virologist now? Well, there you go then.
And this is actual sign language. I think I read somewhere they're speaking,
Yeah.
and
Well,
having Dwayne Johnson actually speak the lines as well keeps us in sync with what's going on.
yeah, that's a really cool thing. What were your thoughts on George becoming albino for the film? I don't recall him ever being that in any of the games at all. It's just something they kind of did for the film.
Yeah, you're correct. They did, and there's a very good reason for it coming up shortly because he was more of a sort of orangutan kind of, although he was a gorilla. But yeah, he had that sort of orange, I think, brownish sort of color scheme.
Mm.
Originally for the film, they were going to do just a sort of traditional silverback design. But yeah, put a pin in that. The reason why he's albino is coming up shortly. Is and another interesting thing about it, because it is motion capture, it's obviously not a real
Yeah.
gorilla. They kept the actor's eyes. They retained the actor wearing the motion capture suit and the sensors. The it's a really cool thing. I thought it was anyway. They retained the actor's eyes, the blue eyes. So what a cool moment, because George is very cheeky and he's got a real sort of kind of grubby, dirty sense of humor, and that was all from the actor apparently. So they kept in a lot of his little jokes and mannerisms.
It's funny that you say that because I was having a conversation with the young fella, and he was talking about like we just recently saw the Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire, and talking even though Godzilla gets top billing on that movie title, it's very much a King Kong film, and he was quick to point out, well, him being a primate and close relation to humans and all of that, you can kind of build a bit more of a relationship with Kong than what you can Godzilla. And I'm like, well, you're correct in that in that assessment because they seeing them do this with George here, it just works. It just clicks. So like, there's more depth to the primate sort of kaiju giant monster than what there is with the reptile.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I guess we'll talk about the other creatures when they pop up, but I think they did a really great job with a lot of these scenes. I mean, it's really the the plot's really kicking off now. As we get our first glimpse of Ralph, the Timberwolf.
I always love the special move in the game, the howl that just shatters buildings and levels them.
Yeah,
It's just so crazy. I mean, like Lizzie had the Godzilla thing, and I can't really remember what George's was. It's been so long since I played those games.
yeah, it's been a long time for me as well.
It used to be an old arcade, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
in the
yeah, that
80s.
long, long, long time ago.
Yeah, and it was like what, a fucking cassette on the Commodore.
Mm.
It's had quite a, and it's funny when you think about how long Rampage has been around. Again, it's only had like 3 or 4 interpretations, like installments in the series, but they've all kind of been remade, remastered, re-released here, there, and everywhere, and that kind of goes away for 2 decades and then comes back.
Yeah, and I think this film began life as a yeah, sort of Warner Brothers had purchased a claim, or Midway, or whatever company it was, and yeah, it was just going through their old property sitting on the shelf and thought, can you do something with this?
I do love how this is set in San Diego as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
animals, zoos. I mean, it's a very. I mean, there's only one place for that made in a film. Like, I mean, The Lost World did it. I mean,
yeah, and I think it was filmed actually. Okay, so the reason George is albino is actually really simple. It's because blood um, was really hard to see on brown or black fur, and it was this scene in particular where George is in a fight with a bear and is wounded. So it was a really simple, practical reason. The blood up against brown or black fur was really hard to see. So that created the impetus to make him an albino.
Yeah.
And also, um, and they actually made the job kind of harder for themselves. It's a pretty tall creative feat that creators have taken on because so much of the action takes place during the day in this film. Whereas, you know,
And that's a good thing, by the way. I'm
yeah,
sick and tired of shit happening at night.
yeah, but it makes their job 10 times harder as well because it's so.
But it makes it look 20 times better. Like
Yeah,
that's, I mean, if you
that's
want it to
something I
look good,
was.
you've got to put in the hard yards, mate. If you want CG to look good, it's just that simple.
Yeah, and the CGI really holds up. I know it's 2018 is not too long ago, but the computer effects are just incredible in this
This
film.
was such a chilling moment here. That's kind of my favorite phrase when we do these movies. Like when he stands out, even though he's nowhere near like what you'd consider to be the actual Titan that the creature should be, that is massive. Like he could fold up the Rock now, and he's only that big.
Yeah, and it's really interesting how the filmmakers approached each transformation or mutation. George goes through five of them, whereas Ralph uh, goes through just as many, but we only see three for Ralph, and we only catch a little glimpse of Lizzie until she bursts out in all her final mutated glory at the end. So the pacing with transformations between all three creatures is really interesting. As an audience, we're mostly emotionally invested in George, so we get to witness the most growth he goes through with five, and Ralph is set up as sort of the antagonistic one, and he goes through his major ones, but we don't see all of them. And they did a superb job with Lizzie, who's probably my favorite element of the whole film. I love the way
It's
she's not even the military are aware of her. No one knows she exists until
then she starts swimming in the Chicago River and
yes,
just fucking bursts out into the
yeah.
scene.
Isn't that it's just an amazing moment. I can't believe this movie gets bagged the way it does.
But okay, this is something that I wanted to ask about that. What were audiences expecting going into this film? Like, were you expecting War and Peace or something? Like, what were you? If you were expecting like an earth-shattering story that makes you contemplate, the sophisticality of life, give yourself an uppercut. It's a movie with giant monsters called Rampage, starring The Rock. You are
Yeah,
not
I
going to
think
get that here.
Yeah, I think that the way you just described it, it's a movie called Rampage starring The Rock. I think I got what it was delivering. I feel really satisfied as a viewer. It gave, I think it promised and delivered everything it did promise. It's not fucking a movie that Daniel Day-Lewis would ever be in, but I don't want to watch movies like that on a Friday night.
No, you know how they all like to quote that Martin Scorsese line, the MCU movies are not real cinema? Well, I'm withholding all judgment now on all future movies that we commentate until I hear Martin Scorsese talk about them.
Yeah.
I don't know this bloke's name here, but he rocked up in the tail end of The Office as Pete, if I'm not mistaken.
The brother and sister
Yeah, the
corporate
flog
villains.
back
Yeah.
there. Yeah, he rocked up as I think his name's Pete. What? It's Clark and Pete. Those two random temps, and then
Yeah.
isn't this Joe Mantigliano here?
Yeah, and I was surprised that A, he was in the movie, and B, his ultimate fate, because I went back and watched the trailer, and there's a lot of red herrings in the trailer, because it shows a lot of Negan, what's his name?
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah. You think he's going to be the main antagonist, but they quickly put aside their differences, which kind of caught me off guard, and it kind of sets, although this guy doesn't feature heavily in the trailer, but we just get a good look at him now and this private security mercenary team. you kind of get the feeling he's going to be the
It's like a
recurring,
strike force, yeah.
yeah, this strike team that this corporation, the genetics company have hired. You think he's going to be the main antagonist, but he's dispatched really quickly. So
I
there's a
don't.
couple of red herrings in the trailer, and the story sort of went where I didn't expect it to go.
Well, I don't want to fight you, Ralph. I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
Yeah, yeah. He was also in True Blood, and he was earmarked to play Deathstroke in the DCEU, but I don't think that ever panned out.
I think at most, he got that cameo from Zack Snyder setting up a sequel that we all know was never going to happen, which is what kind of annoys me even more about the Zack Snyder cut. It adds in fucking scenes setting up something that we all know is never going to happen.
Yeah,
Now, you're going to have to forgive me. I forget this actress's name, but this, I believe, was the new Moneypenny, I think.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with a lot of her work, but she does an okay job in this. It's probably it's not the
I
kind of
was going to
deepest.
take a stab and say
Huh?
Naomi Harris, but I'll have to check. Um,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's her.
yeah, I believe she played Moneypenny in Skyfall,
Yeah,
who,
okay.
which is probably one of my more favourite versions of the character when she does field work, and then all of a sudden, when they completely screw up that train thing, and then she prefers to work behind a desk like she wanted to do that.
Yeah, now I'm with you. Yeah, I know who she is. Good. She hit Bond and made him fall off the train. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I just think that's probably the coolest version of Moneypenny I think we've seen in a long, long time.
yeah. She plays Kate Caldwell in this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look at that crater there. And I love all the facial scarring. They've John Connored him up a bit.
Yeah,
Uh, See, living like where we do with massive heat waves and there's no real room for growth or greenery of any kind. I do quite admire American countrysides and stuff when we see them in film. Like, just seeing how just green things are normally. It's, like no real, like, kind of high maintenance. It's just how it is. Like,
yeah.
just because
It's
of the
an
climate.
amazing.
Yeah, I
Yes,
quite, I admire it a lot, yeah.
yeah. It's an amazing country. I do really want to visit America and explore all of it, even Middle America, and yeah, it's just what a spectacular country, and there's some great like spectacular architecture, like that building in Chicago in the film's
Hmm.
climax. It's just what an incredible structure that is. There's some wonderful places in America.
I do love what The Rock does here. Like we're going by the book here. There is no real procedure for what's going on. Like I do quite like this bloke in the glasses here. I believe he rocked up in Final Destination 5,
Yeah,
and went out like a total punk, as most of them do. But I quite like this scene here. Like he's not fine. You've got to start getting to the gravity of the situation.
yeah,
I mean, even as well trained and as well versed as The Rock is in this facility, this is totally outside of his depth, and he flat out admits it when he walks out of the room when he runs into Naomi Harris's character.
yeah,
And I love how every time we come back to this storage unit where they've got George, like the structure that they're holding him in just gets bigger and bigger. He's in like a little cage there, but by the time she goes out back to see him, he's in like a walled off section of the basement. like,
yeah. That's right. It's a really cool detail. Yeah,
like every time it cuts back to him, the enclosure gets bigger and bigger. See, but it doesn't it doesn't have to bash you over the head with like a scene showing him growing like he's Piccolo. Just, like it's just like in between cuts, he's just bigger.
yeah, that's right. Because he's already made his sort of second one now when at the gorilla enclosure, and then he'll mutate again a little later when the plane crashes.
Yeah. I will say, it's something that I kind of gush over a little bit, and that is, I love actors that can sell you on a look. The Rock has some of the coolest facial expressions of all time. Like, I mean, in the entertaining world of wrestling, he is just remarkable to watch, and a lot of that translates very well on screen. I think with his facial structure, he's so cool.
Yeah, he's got immense charisma and he's got immense charm.
Yeah, he does. He really does. I love him. Oh, just the eyebrow, mate. You got the people's eyebrow. He's about to layeth the smacketh down, mate.
Yeah.
It's a weird sort of layout. There's like a kitchen area there, but it's front reception. It's this set that they're in.
Yeah, apparently they had real primatologists on hand to sort of tell them what would be authentic and what wouldn't be.
Yeah. Like, and I do appreciate when production goes, to get the broad strokes to make sure it feels right and all of that kind of jazz. Like, I get that.
To be
but
realistic. It's got to be believable in terms of the story.
Exactly. When they try to take it to this whole new Nolan-esque kind of level, it's so grounded in reality. Like, the more grounded in reality your film becomes, the less creative it can be. And people need to get a grip on that. Like, you can't really have both. If it's so gritty and down to earth and realistic and they're real people in real danger, you can only really put them in real circumstances then. Like, if a giant gorilla rocked up in what you were aiming to be a realistic film, you failed. Because in your quest to make it so realistic, the high concept can no longer work. Because it's not made to be realistic. So when people start talking about things like Bryce Dallas Howard running in high heels from a T-Rex, you're not getting the point, are you? Like, you're really not. I'm just not getting through to you, am I, Daryl? And, like, look at the size of him there compared to the last Smash cut.
Yeah, he looks, sort of 12 feet tall there. And getting bigger.
Yeah, this breakout here was pretty... I do like the way Dwayne plays this, because, like, the second he hits it, he knows right away the structure's been compromised, because it's not meant to hold this. So almost immediately everyone starts clearing out. But she's also made a mention now that the aggression factor is kicking in. I thought this was really cool to make... It's sort of to make all three of them antagonists in a way that's true to the game.
Yeah, because it's something the film... what's interesting about the games is they were humans first.
Yeah.
And they mutated into monsters, whereas these were sort of animals from the beginning and were never human. So
yeah, they were from Scum Labs, I believe it was in the video games. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They were just sort of the custodial staff working for this laboratory.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was interesting. I think I was reading somewhere the initial story did have humans mutating into monsters, but it wasn't really gelling together the way they wanted it to. And George originally was just, they had Dwayne Johnson's character and the primatologist and all that, but they didn't really have George was sort of just a random gorilla. So they fleshed all this stuff out with Davis having rescued George when he was a baby, and sort of the anti-poaching themes came in with each iteration of the script. They didn't think if George is just a random gorilla, there's sort of no emotional stakes for the audience to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right about the CG. It looks crisp. When people... And I'm sure, if you have a flick at some of the, reactions to the film on release, you constantly see this dumb point that all these critics, quote-unquote, bring up. And it's, the CG wasn't all that great. Are you kidding me? Well, it's like when they say things like, Dominion, the T-Rex CGI, how could they make it look better in 93 than in 2022? Your eyes need to be checked, because that CG has never looked better.
Yeah, there's some movies that have come out in the last 2 years that don't look as good as this, which is what 5 or 6 years old now. So yeah, and I was reading. So Weta in New Zealand did the monsters.
Yeah, Weta
Did
Workshop.
George? Yeah, they. I mean, their pedigree is second to none. You know, Lord of the Rings, Avatar, the Planet of the Apes
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
movies. So they handled George and the monsters, but the destruction scenes and the other effects were, I think it's a company called Hydraulics X or something. So, and which I think it's, fairly common. Different special effects companies handle different parts of the post.
One thing that I will say, since we're getting our first glimpses of Ralph,
Mm.
it's a design aesthetic that the film went for, which again I don't think any of the video games did. Keeping Ralph quadrupedal, I think it was a very smart choice to do that for the film, because if they're keeping George just as a bigger gorilla, if Ralph stood up like a werewolf and had hands and thumbs and stuff like that, that's probably overstepping the bounds a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the games do this, but um, Naomi Harris's character says they combine different DNA traits of different animals, which is why Ralph has the sort of the porcupine spikes along his back and tail,
Yeah.
and he can fly. And there's a great joke towards the end how he can fly.
Which, come on! I mean, that was cool. Yeah, we'll probably gush over that when that rocks up. Well, and just to, talking about the sort of the splicing that she makes a mention of. If you look at like Lizzie's jaw, she has like boar tusks.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
the
all sorts
creature
of
designs
things going
are
on there.
amazing. Yeah, now there's a lot of nods and winks to aliens here. It's obviously like lots and lots of movies pay homage to aliens, but how the monitor feeds go dead and they start flatlining, and even this character's his name is Burke. So I don't know if it's intentional or just purely coincidental, but I noticed a lot of homages to aliens in this scene as the strike team dies, and there's a very
I love how he flicks it to full auto as well, just to sort of get ready. Yeah, for what's coming, because Ralph, it's probably going to take a fair bit to down him. I thought it was pretty interesting how that all came together.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you dropped out for a little second there, mate.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I love the kind of camera feed here. Well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously very kind of alien-esque, but just about every film you can think of that has monsters kind of has to have a scene like this. Like, Jurassic
Yeah,
World did a
there's,
similar thing with the ACU team, with the Indominus Rex.
Yeah, I just mentioned that. I must have dropped out, yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go, then you beat me to it. Yes, so, it's like everyone goes, oh yeah, it's a total rip-off of Aliens. Like, but if you love Aliens, why do you hate something that's just like Aliens? It's giving you more of what you like. Why do you hate it? I've never understood this with fans.
And yeah, so I was, like I mentioned earlier, I was surprised this guy bit the dust as quickly as he did.
It subverted your expectations.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
But it wasn't like, it wasn't like like the first scene that he's in, he gets hit by a bit of falling debris and then that's it. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think he's unaware that it's established later on that a side effect of their exposure to the canisters is they have a healing factor. So, which it's an ability I don't think these guys are aware of yet. And I love that moment. Incoming, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, keeping Ralph quadrupedal was the coolest thing they could have done
Yeah.
with him. Yeah, because you'll notice that the bear claw marks on George now are full scars now.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I probably would have shit a brick right after that. But it's like, I just find it so interesting. like why people don't like something that channels a bit of something that they like, because it's just more of what they like, isn't it? I've never understood people who don't like something just because it's similar to something that they like. It's just more of what you
Well, I'm not.
like.
Yeah, I mean, I love Aliens. I'm not. I just sort of noticed a lot of nods and winks in that particular sequence. It doesn't bother me at all, really. But yeah, some people do get uptight about it.
Yeah, you're trying to tell me that Aliens hasn't flogged a couple of scenes here and there from another film that we haven't heard of? I mean, let's get real. I love how they put a guy like Davis in cuffs like this as if it's going to stop him. But I
Yeah,
suppose you've got to make it look good and run him through the numbers.
yeah,
Yeah, I love this scene here where they're talking inside of this massive aircraft. They do a similar thing in the Matthew Broderick 1998 Godzilla, where they're flying over all these areas and all of that, following this thing. And I just love this scene inside of a massive aircraft carrier. I just thought it's so cool to do it. Like, it's just
yeah.
something I really like. Like, I love submarines. I think this is just as cool when they do this in movies.
Yeah, these cargo planes are absolutely huge. We get our first introduction to Agent Harper? Agent Harper Russell,
Yeah,
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
we pissing our pants yet?
Yeah, it's another thing. It's another theory I have for why the film wasn't well received. He's a terrific actor, but he's on autopilot here. I'm not sure if it's entirely his fault, but this is Negan. This is, apart from the southern kind of accent that creeps in, the swagger and the grin and the smart ass comments. This is Negan ripped
Light.
wholesale from The Walking Dead.
You know, it's like I think the southern accent's real because his first kind of major splash into, I think, most people's circles was he played John Winchester in Supernatural, Jensen and Jared's old boy. I think the southern accent, it's real, isn't it?
Oh, it very well might be. I don't detect it so much because I was a pretty big fan of The Walking Dead for a long time. And I think that's one of the things that hurt this movie. As good as Negan was, there's a general consensus amongst Walking Dead fans that storyline dragged on a bit too long. Negan makes his first appearance in late 2016, and this is 2018, and it just seemed the war with Negan's group just dragged on and on and on, and so that may have sort of soured people. You can have too much of a good thing. Sometimes.
Yeah, things do tend to overstay their welcome quite a bit. And I think another thing that kind of got him on a lot of people's radars was the Watchmen in '09. He was the comedian, I believe, in that.
Yeah, that's where I kind of first discovered him. Yeah, he was the comedian in the Watchmen adaptation.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you'll notice a trend here with a lot of these roles. They're all the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe because he played Negan for a long time and still continues to this day to play Negan. He's been in...
You're kidding me. It's been like a decade.
Yeah, well, The Walking Dead ended in 2022, I think, but he's now in a spin-off show. I think it's called Dead City. So he's continues to play Negan. Yeah, like coming on nearly 10 years now, the better part of 10 years. But maybe he had trouble getting out of that character because he plays him with such intensity.
Or maybe it could be, it's just a good, easy paycheck every week.
Yeah.
So let's
and
just bang out a couple of episodes.
Yeah, maybe that's the sort of they wanted. Like, that's what we hired you for. So, but it was important. Dwayne Johnson really swore by him because he is a real high-quality actor. It's not so much who can physically go with him, it's who can just sort of really stand up to him and look him in the eye in an acting sort of performance sense.
One thing I will say about this film, from a kind of like shooting perspective, this film has a pretty full-on color palette, and I love it. Like, we've had these grassy countrysides. We've got this kind of sterile blue environment now. We had the colourful mural on the wall at the zoo centre. We had the ape enclosure and all of that. We've had a lot of very nice. I mean, we were even in fucking outer space in the opening of the film. Like, this film has got an awesome palette going.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the locations and sets, and even in the sort of control room of the Wyvern twins in the corporation, just the shelves in and around their office are just decorated with random shit that guy buys and just tosses aside. So it tells you a lot about his character.
Like, didn't they have an arcade machine of Rampage in the fucking in their head office building?
Yeah, I did catch that in the back of the shot. Apparently, it was a gift from The Rock or something. Someone gave it to him, or he gave it to someone. I was reading somewhere the arcade version.
Yeah, all right.
The Rock claims to be a pretty big fan of the game. At first, I thought he was sort of being a little bit, maybe facetious, just sort of.
Yeah, I love it.
By all reports, he was a really big fan of the game growing up. So
yeah, I love African Child.
Yeah, that's right. I got the feeling it was kind of that, but no, he said multiple times that he was a huge fan of the game. And he played it a lot as he was growing up.
Like, I don't see, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, nothing shits me more. And it's, like, it's this obsession with realism and real people and real this and real that. I love how these people are playing overblown caricatures. Yeah. Like, they're not, like, no real person behaves this way.
That's right.
And yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's no way anyone like this exists in real life.
Yeah, there's no way.
It. Yeah.
Like, the way he was eating that donut like he's punishing it for fucking war crimes. No one does that. And it's like, I love it. Like, I'm so sick and tired of things being played so straight. And by the way, I think when things are played super, super straight and just down to the core and it's real and it's realistic and you could buy this person and all this kind of stuff, it gets boring very quickly and it does come off as way too try-hardy. Like, the harder they try to be aware and realistic and all of that, the worse it comes across.
Yeah, and I've sort of come full circle around it. I went through that phase as well. Like, I was obsessed. Like, a story has to matter. Well, it's only really the reader or the viewer that decides that. And I was talking to a friend a couple of years ago, and she was watching, like, just something really trashy, like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or something. And she's a smart person. She has multiple degrees. She works in psychology. She does important work. I'm thinking, why are you watching this garbage? And she said, it's because you don't have to think about it. Like, she goes from Monday to Friday helping people deal with very serious problems and trauma. And so to, like, her weekends, she doesn't have to think. She doesn't have to use that space. She can just watch something with her brain turned off. Turn your brain off entertainment. So I finally understood that now. And that's why I understand the appeal of things like, Sharktopus and, Dino Croc versus Super Gator. You don't have to think. And I understand why they're so popular and why they continually get made.
Yeah, because if they were so shockingly bad, they wouldn't be churning them out all the time. And I believe this is our first look at Lizzie as well. Yeah,
it's one of my favourite moments in the film as she's trawling this lake and upends the yachts.
I like how she's like a torpedo already. Yeah, like how slow and lumbering she is, but almost like, because we love our realism, almost like a real crocodile. Like, how like they're like slow and slithery on the land, but as soon as they get in water, they're like fucking torpedoes. Yeah, how quickly they can move. The crocodile roll, mate.
Yeah, and just how like large she is already. So, like, I think a crocodile is 20 foot long, fully grown. She looks closer to 50 feet long there.
God, fucking crocodiles, mate. Yeah, so now we're starting to get George going. And, like, as I mentioned earlier, this is something that I really liked, because to have the three of them doing what they do best from the video games, George kind of needed to become an antagonist at some point. Even though we've got this relationship building with him, he did need to go bad where Davis couldn't really kind of tame him anymore. so you could have those awesome shots of the three of them putting in the work on Chicago.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
It's
if one of them,
yeah.
because if George was a protagonist the whole time, it's George versus the other two. It's not really Rampage. So to get that, all three of them had to go bad.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they've established the fact that what's going on isn't George's fault. So he's somewhat sort of abdicated.
And one thing about in Ralph's case, real quick, he's a feral wolf. He was in the wild when that happened.
Yeah.
Like he's got no contact with humans, man. Like you just saw him. Like you remember the old twisty shots where you rip open the top and then shoot the twisty chips. He was just eating humans out of a bus like that just before. He does not care at all.
Yeah, I'm surprised they got away with some of it. Yeah, because there's a lot of violence in this movie that they somehow snuck past.
Yeah, not to mention like the brother getting eaten and all of that. I loved this square off here. When I rewatched this film earlier in the week, and as I mentioned, like the bear claw on the chest is a scar now. It's not
Yeah.
like the raw red open cut that it was. Just going back to your point about the healing factor, like very subtle how it's working on George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, it's just, and that's something else as well. And I remember the Tarzan 1999 film was really good at this. Like, have him use like his mobility and like his prowess in man-made locations. Like as you just saw George like scurrying off of piping on the roof of the cargo bay and all that kind of stuff. Like I love seeing that kind of thing in not natural structures. It's like that in Donkey Kong Country when you go to the Creme Croc Industries and it's all like factories and you know all this kind of stuff. It's cool seeing apes move around in environments like that.
Yeah, or the industrialization.
Yeah,
And again, it's another. There's so much daylight in this movie, and it makes the effects people's jobs so much harder because there's nowhere to hide. You can't hide it behind rain or night.
but I think that's. I think was the kind of the thumbs up that they were going for though, because like I would feel proud to put my hand up and say, yeah, we did that, we worked on that, you know.
They did not chicken out at all. These are like absolutely terrific shots in full daylight. So yeah, mad respect to the crew who worked on this.
Yeah, and this probably could have been the end of Negan here, but no, we got to shoot him up.
Again, yeah, it's the trailer's very misleading in a good way. It sort of sets him up as the main villain, but after Davis saves his life, they're pretty much on the same team from this point forward. And we're still sort of just getting to be halfway through the film, so I quite like that. The trailer sets him up to be an absolute douchebag, which he is in a lot of ways, but he quickly realizes that, yeah, they're better off working together. So it was a very welcome surprise.
I will say this now that you mentioned that this film's pacing is actually very, very good.
Yeah.
Like we haven't been hung up on anything yet. Like, oh, this is going a little bit too long. Nah, George's growth started happening. We had the Marines with Burke trying to track down Ralph. Like it's been clipped, and we just got our first glimpse of Lizzie in the river. It's clipping along at a very well off pace, and you know they've only just become aware of Ralph, but they've got no idea about Lizzie yet. But we as an audience do. It's clipping along very well. Like it's already set up its end game. Like they're all going, and the tower has been activated with the twins, and they're all converging to Chicago now. It's like everything's in play now for the final act.
Yeah, all the pieces are laid out. That again, they deserve so much credit for their handling of Lizzie. The entire editing and she's not in the film for very long, but yeah, just unbelievable how they unveiled her and the build up to it. Good. And what is so impressive is no one knows about it in the story. Like you just said, we as the audience know about it, but it's very unexpected from everyone involved when she makes her long-awaited.
I'll say this just to piss off the kaiju guys real quick, because I really didn't think much of Shimu in the New Empire. I thought she was pretty fucking boring, like, not gonna lie. I think Lizzie would absolutely steamroll her in a fight. Straight up. I mean, if we're gonna be if we're gonna have these two having a bitch fight, I'm backing Lizzie all the way. I mean, because like she was like a literal just force of nature. We'll get a good look at her soon.
Well, for her final mutation, she's 50 feet tall and over 200 feet long.
But it's just the tail dragging around everywhere, which is just so cool. It's just like that in and of itself is like bigger than the other two combined.
Yeah, I like all the design elements. Like you mentioned a little while ago, she has different teeth. And the tail...
she's got boar tusks. It's so fucking gnarly, isn't it?
Yeah, and the tail can flare out. It creates this sort of spike weapon. It's so cool.
Yeah, there's a bit of everything going on. It's almost like a plant in a way as well. Like, there's all sorts of things going on with it. I love the country buckle on our agent over here.
Yeah.
You know, I find this so interesting with a lot of these kind of federal agents that seem to be rocking up in these things. I love how all of them can't be fucked shaving.
The 3-day growth, it's sexy, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that's the rumor, at least.
It's one of the theories, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any results, but apparently, the 3 days, they reckon. Yeah, like, I always wondered that about people. I'm like, champ, it really doesn't take long to get that shit off your face. Yeah, I've never understood the beard craze. That's just me, though. Yeah, the brother, I quite like the brother. I mean, he's the comedic relief of the film. And the sister is just such a fucking witch. Yeah, I quite like these pair. The twin antagonist is something I want to see more of, because they don't seem to quite get the balance right. Like, the reason you have two of them is so one of them can be a flog.
Yeah.
But it's not like an underling thing. Like, they're both the main antagonists of the film.
Yeah. Project Rampage.
Yeah, a name drop. But people, it's funny, like, some people would... Like, I don't think this is the type of film you need to go over academically to break down why you think it's good or bad. But if people, like, the Rampage cabinet being in their office, that would be something that people would get hung up on and going, that means the Rampage video game exists in the Rampage universe. What do they do? It's just a gag, guys. For God's sake, get off your high horse. No one cares. It was just a visual gag.
Yeah.
I love how he manages to get this two-way working and just bits of just fuck playing everywhere. And one thing about the film as well that I find quite interesting is this, I believe this all takes place over one day, from the night that George encounters the meteorite up until now. This is all the day after George has been infected.
Yeah, that's right. The whole movie takes place over 48 hours.
Jesus Christ. Just keeping it like nice and concise. I love these cornrows. Like, just these, like so huge. You hear stories about people getting lost in those things, eh? Just never finding their way out.
Yeah, let's hope not. Christ. What a way to go.
What a shit way to die. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, man. I forgot about this bit here. Yeah, so this is the finding George, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a sort of hugely prominent theme, but they wanted to give it a little bit of depth, so the animal conservation and anti-poaching sort of story elements came in.
I remember hearing that when you hear about these kind of primate attacks and all of that, how like they bite your fingers off. It's because they see you doing intricate things like writing and typing on keyboards and all of that. They know your fingers are important. So when they get aggro at humans and all that, and they start ripping fingers and biting fingers off and stuff like that, because they know you're dependent on them. Like
Yeah.
they pay attention to you doing that. I can't remember where I heard that. I just thought it was something interesting because they do that in Planet of the Apes. When John Lithgow is getting harassed by the neighbor's pointing at him and tapping his chest with his finger, and Caesar bites it off. Um, it's something that, yeah, I really can't remember where I read that, but I just thought it was interesting to sort of take note of. There is that they pay attention to your body and how you move around and all of that, and they know what you're dependent on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I mean, there was that primate Coco that I'm not sure who it was taught them how to sign language, and there are a couple of other examples that of primates being taught how to sign, and they can carry on sort of long, fairly complicated conversations. It's really fascinating, and and there's been other sort of projects as well. I was reading on and off about particularly dolphins, how they communicate and how intelligent they are, and other things like that. It's all really interesting to read about.
Yeah. See, we go. I do like this quiet moment here. Like, this is really the sort of the calm before the storm moment. Like, they're talking about just kind of getting all the ducks in a row for what's about to be just balls out, balls to the wall, go to woe, just non-stop, flat out action. We do get this kind of quiet moment to digest everything up until this point, because the film just does not stop bashing you with it, which is good because it's earned the right to do that. I don't mind a film going crazy with non-stop ejaculate in the final act. It's when the entire film is nothing but ejaculate and there's no foreplay, does it kind of bother me a little bit. Like, that was one of the criticisms. A very creative way to describe it.
Yeah, that was an analogy and a half, that one.
I heard that I remember reading a review for Dawn of Justice, and that was their complaint about it. There's no foreplay in this film. It's just all unearned, non-stop, just going nuts.
Who wrote it? Harry Knowles?
Probably. Yeah, it's the kind of thing you would read on Ain't It Cool? This is it here. So what's your take on these kind of military scenes that happen? I mean, they're pretty big in your Independence Days, your Transformers, your Godzillas and all of that. What's your take on these?
One thing I've always wondered is, are they really this uncooperative in real life? Like, I know sort of in my job, working with, different departments and what have you, like, we're all rowing in the same direction. Like the idea that you deliberately stonewall someone or be deliberately uncooperative, they have to do it in movies to get some dramatic tension. So I've often wondered in these sorts of scenes, in all those sort of movies and more that you've mentioned, are they really this uncooperative? Because they work for the same government. They're meant to be on the same fucking team. So I've often wondered about that. Are they really this uncooperative? I suspect not. And like, you're trained to rapidly take on board new information, and I'm assuming that's how people in the military are trained. They're trained to sort of take on board their surroundings and rapidly gather and assimilate new information. And so the idea that these people would have valuable information that they'd instantly disregard, it's sometimes I wonder.
Yeah, I never quite thought about it that way. Nah, that's a
I often get that
good answer.
impression with police procedural shows as well. How, where, state police are investigating, and FBI come in and just, we've got a bigger dick and sideline them.
Or like the kind of shit that Larkin has to put up with in Con Air.
Yeah, I really admire The Shield for sort of not leaning into that when Dutch, I forget what agency or whatever the person he's talking to is, but he's like, we should, let's get together and swap notes. We need to share your information with ours. And Dutch and Claudette just sort of look at each other. So I do admire that show for not leaning into, this sort of uncooperative sort of nature you see in a lot of these different shows and films.
Yeah. But there's varying degrees of the cooperation stick, isn't there? Like, I remember, I think it might have been in King of the Monsters, I think, or it might have even been in the 2014 Godzilla, where they flat out fucking nuke Godzilla, and the other monsters at the time were like still alive and healthy. Well, we just killed our best chance of survival.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like open fire on Superman, but he's the only one, kind of covering our ass at the moment. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I always love the Arkham Asylum takedown moment here.
Yeah.
Because as mentioned earlier, he's got a military background, and I believe he says in that scene that those two were privates.
Yeah, MPs.
All this film needs is a quick jump cut going, Johnson!
Yeah, privates.
Yeah, yeah, Johnson. Yeah, Johnson, Hancock, and Dick.
I feel safer already.
Yeah, I know, right? We got that trifecta looking out for us. Yeah, I love this kind of sneaking around, and I love the sneaky stuff in films and all of that. I don't know what it is. Just something about that element, like from your Home Alones to your Rampages to your Batmans and all that kind of stuff. I love the sneaky Mission Impossible. I love the sneaky scenes, like darting in and out real quick. Like, you're not screwing around. You're not there for an extravaganza moment. You've got to get in and out.
Yeah.
I love this bloke's sidearm holster just hanging off the front.
Yeah. And just his mannerisms, the swagger and the lean back.
I noticed that, yeah, the cocked spine there. Yeah.
Although I haven't sort of followed his work, everything he's done closely, it could be just a natural thing he does, because that's what Negan does. Negan leans back on his haunches like that and sort of sizes you up. It could be just something that Jeffrey Dean Morgan does. It could be just a natural part of his sort of gait.
Oh, it's like a tick or something, maybe?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. Because this is, like, if I had just watching this scene now with no knowledge, I'm thinking, oh, this is a Negan deleted scene. He's found his tuxedo.
Yeah, if you were just channel surfing one night and you were on a shot of him in this film, would you believe that you were watching The Walking Dead, like, straight
100%. Yeah, he talks like Negan. He says things Negan would say. It's quite, yeah. Again, I think it's probably what hurt the film when it first came out, because as I alluded to earlier, that particular plot just went on for too long, and audiences sort of got a bit tired of him. So maybe that hurt the sort of the reception of the film as well.
Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe I think it's starting to kind of size up as one of those. Everyone's kind of a right kind of thing. I think on some degree, all of this kind of led to the reception that it got. And again, like, this is by no means anywhere near what I would consider to be a bad movie. But
it's not even like I said, I'll probably watch 2 or 3 more things tonight, and they'll be shitter than this, no doubt about it. And then this is meant to be shit.
But, I think what happens with just the negativity of word of mouth about film these days is that, everything is, everywhere you look, everywhere you read, everything is just, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit, it's shit. When something comes out that's actually half decent, they don't realize it because they're just so conditioned to, like, it's not even going into a film actively hating it from the get-go. Like, it's not even going in there looking for snags deliberately anymore. It's just this fucked up way of think, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's really it's really bizarre, I think. Yeah,
Johnson, there he is.
Dick, check out Starboard.
Yeah, Dick. Yeah, check it. And that, oh, by the way, that's David Koechner, isn't it?
Yeah,
he does that. Yeah. It just gets me thinking a little bit like that. But one thing though I quite like about these scenes is that they don't go overboard on like the zaniness and all of that. That's what you got the twins for. So like everyone else is acting relatively normal, but it's the twins that really hamp up the show. Like I miss when a film would do that. They would delegate that to certain characters. Like you look at Star Wars. Like a lot of the brunt of the jokes would always fall onto the droids. Like no one would crack a joke at Darth Vader. You know,
Yeah.
similar deal here. Like they're not using, Davis as the brunt of a joke. They're not using the agent as a joke. They're not using the military as a joke. You've got the twins for that
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
Like there is a way of juggling it all together. Like a film doesn't have to go like pants on head stupid and everyone has to act like a cartoon. You can relegate that to one character and have that.
And I think there's a moment right at the end where I think it does lean into it, but it's the tee up to a gag. I thought it was really well done, and we'll comment on it as we.
I love Ralph jumping up onto the roof there because that's something you pretty much did all the time in the games.
Yeah. There's lots of little nods and winks and shout outs and homages to the games here.
Now we're really getting into it. Oh, see, I love that. Yeah, downing the vehicles, eating people on the street, smashing buildings. Because in like Rampage 2, you'd get marked on how many buildings you destroyed, people you've eaten. The moment with the dog. Yeah, well, you can't kill the dog, right? And the vehicles you destroy.
Poison.
Yeah, the quills. Yeah, that's really cool, that, yeah. And there's something about Lizzie as well. Like, Lizzie kind of has elements of a plant.
Yeah, and she's
growing
got
on her body.
And the gecko-like ability to crawl up the walls.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Yeah, we're flying below building level in this movie, mate.
There's just some amazing architecture in Chicago. The Willis Tower. It used to be called the Sears Tower. The building is huge.
I think the river is what really sells it, because I believe Dark of the Moon had its final battle there as well.
Yeah, the Chicago River.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it's a very good, like, you can get good iconography out of it, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's just looks like an amazing city. And yeah,
look at the size of it on that fucking radar.
This big reveal, I can't speak highly enough about how they handled Lizzie. This reveal is a real capstone of the whole picture. This is just spectacular, this sequence. Look at it. It's just phenomenal.
I love how, like, Davis isn't really at all that, like, we'll deal with this when it's time to deal with this. like he hasn't really got another fuck left to give at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, the spines on the back, like, it's almost plant-like in a way. Yeah. You know that old Beast Wars Fusor, that Terragator?
Yeah.
I see a bit of that in this.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal design, and I always love the storytelling technique that no one knows about it. It's the classic sort of moment in the Lord of the Rings when Sam has the ring. Like, Aragorn thinks Sauron has it, Sauron thinks Pippin has it, but at that point in the story, Sam has it. And that's something no one knows. No one knew about Lizzie in the story until she burst up out of the river.
And I love the kind of shark-like, it's got like 18 rows of teeth. And you'll notice that one of the tusks is broken off. That's really cool, that. I love... it's something I remember Todd McFarlane saying about when people ask him to critique Venom drawings and all of that, he says, I fucking can't stand perfect teeth on monsters like Venom. They don't go to Dennis.
Yeah, that's a good philosophy.
So the fact that Lizzie has like all these broken and chipped teeth and like it's like just this grinder, and like there's no symmetry at all in her teeth. Like it's perfect. That's how it should be.
Yeah, there's just such an amazing spectacle in this final act.
And like look at like her jaw span is bigger than George, like fully stretched out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a good sense of like perspective as well and depth. Like when we're seeing like when that soldier ran up with the mortar just before, and we got the behind shot of the soldier, it really puts into scale just how big Lizzie and Ralph and all of that are in comparison to ground level.
Yeah.
Like the film did a good job of like from the soldier's perspective, the horizon line. Lizzie is fucking huge.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just her, though. Like, I mean, it's all of them are just gigantic. And it's something I think a lot of disaster, monster, survival kind of films need to do. They need to have smug authority figures getting their comeuppance at some point. It's just something that they all do. Like, Armageddon does it. Godzilla does it. Deep Impact does it. Independence Day does it. You've got to have smug authority figures getting a "I told you so" moment.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's why we love movies, because in reality, shitheads end up getting promoted. You sort of fail upwards, don't you?
Well, I'm going to put that in my autobiography. It's titled "Assholes Finish First." And I always wondered if a military control room looked anything like what they depicted like in film, like with these fucking Star Wars holographic projectors everywhere and like all these touchscreens and all of that, or are we taking a few creative liberties? I've always wondered about that.
It's, there's a British show called Cobra that came out a couple of years ago, and the emergency sort of crisis room for the British government. It's highly classified, but under a Freedom of Information request, the British government released one still image of it, and that was sort of the idea for this show. They recreated this entire set based on that one still image, and there's like multi screens. There's a big long table, and it was quite an interesting sort of read because a lot of this is highly classified. But much like yourself, I do sometimes wonder how it really looks. And my funniest story I read about that sort of thing was in Goldfinger, where I don't know if it's changed now, but no one's ever seen what the inside of Fort Knox looks like. And so the filmmakers got a letter from a lady who worked there and said she really enjoyed the film. It was very, in quotes, imaginative. And the filmmaker said, well, did we get it right? Were we in the ballpark? And she just laughed at them.
I wonder if it's just like, the Fort Knox in Die Hard with a Vengeance, how it's just like a fucking rusty old jail cell with gold sitting in it. I wonder if it's like that in real life. Yeah. It's just fucking, there's this rundown shithole that has no technology, so no one can hack it or anything like that. It's just so dated. They'd rather just leave it like that. I wonder if that's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of life's many mysteries.
Yeah.
You can trade it all in for what's in this box. The box.
I'd sell my soul to the devil if he made me an offer.
Well, it's too labor intensive. Yeah, I love the in-house news feed they've got going in the background. Like, no, fuck this. And again with the mouse, I'm waiting them for doing like a Jack Palance and just sniff it.
Yeah, I did stick around expecting a post-credit scene because I do.
It would have been pretty cool if Boris and Ruby and Curtis got a shout out, but I mean, after the massive Lizzie reveal and tee up, like that's probably quite a bit to chew on. Like if you brought three more into it.
Well, they seem to be teasing it all film. There's the mutated rat in the opening scene on the space station, and there's this rat that the film keeps making a point. Like the film goes out of its way to have Agent Russell save it. So I was expecting maybe a mid-credit sequence where the rat may have been exposed to something in the building, but no, sadly wasn't to be. Not sadly. It's a good one and done movie. It doesn't need a sequel.
Yeah, but having said that, though, you can have solid one and dones where I wouldn't shy away from a sequel.
Yeah.
It's funny how I keep hearing. It's like I say this quite a lot. How totally fucking desensitized I am to the original Jurassic Park, because all you ever hear in any discourse about it is that stupid quote of they were too preoccupied about making a sequel they never stopped to think if they should.
Yeah.
14 years development, not long enough for you. Fucking all right. It's a little bit like that, but there are some things out there that can have a sequel that don't necessarily need them, but it's not gonna hurt anything if it does get one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was successful. This made nearly what 400, $500 million. Um, it's well, I guess a lot of it would probably come down to if The Rock, the Rock's very in demand. If he's got time in his schedule, they'll probably get around to it eventually.
Oh
I
man, or
did
you could
love,
even make it a standalone kind of thing. Like, you don't have to. I mean, the Apes trilogy never bothered bringing any human back um, over the next couple of films. Like, I reckon Rampage could easily play by those rules as well. The only one that would be a bit of a tough sell is George. But if you're going to go the Rampage 2 route and have the three well, Lizzie dies and Ralph dies in this film, so you
yeah,
don't really have to worry about that. So you could easily omit George from a sequel and just do the next three.
yeah, and with like we mentioned earlier, with the later installments, the roster expands like it's well into double figures, so they can really take their pick of what they're in the great position. They can just choose monsters that really fit the story. Um, and I think a sequel will happen. I don't think we've seen the last of this because I think the I think when the writers and the directors and The Rock all have time in their schedules, it will happen.
Yeah, and I say why not? Like, why not? If it's going to make a sizable portion happy. I mean, these days, as far as any critic is concerned, unless it breaks 1 billion opening weekend, the movie's a financial failure. That's not really how it works, gents. You
Yeah.
know, like, everyone's obsessed with that fucking $1 billion mark. Okay, well, let me break it down like this. I don't think a single Creed movie has ever. In fact, I think over the whole three of them, have they even hit a billion? Like, no. But they tick the box with the audience that they're made for. I believe a similar thing with this. Well, like this,
Yeah,
this will get a
it's,
sequel one day, and it'll tick the box for that particular group of people.
yeah, I think it delivers everything it says to, everything it aimed out to do.
If you wanted Rampage to teach you something about the human condition,
Yeah, you're in
you
the
you are a punce dick. There's no other way to describe it.
yeah. Now we're coming up to the infamous scene where this lady meets her demise.
And I remember Kong Skull Island did this the year prior, having the ape eat someone, but they shied away from it in Skull Island. There's a smash cut before it happens. Nah, mate, this went balls to the wall.
Yeah, I know, and once again, I'm amazed at what they got away with in this film.
Yeah, because in Skull Island, yeah, he goes to eat a soldier, and then it cuts to a guy eating a sandwich.
Yeah,
Like, you don't actually see it. This film just does not. Nah, no holds barred, mate. It's funny, people want more graphic kind of deaths in their monster movies and in their Jurassic. It comes along and then no one sees it.
yeah,
And
that's
also,
right.
they ate people in the game as well.
Yeah, it was a nice throwback because I'd forgotten that little detail, and he even eats her the way he does in the game, where he
Yeah,
holds
he
her up.
throws them in the air.
Yeah,
I
this
love
is a
this
good.
little exchange here.
Yeah, this is a great scene as well, and I love yeah, he saves the rat.
I love how he starts talking to it like, why don't let's you and me take us another way out.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
mean,
leave the little guy with me.
the building here is falling to. I love that little smirk that Jeffrey Dean Morgan does there when he sees the sky, like the rubble off the skyline falling into the street. He has this little smirk.
Yeah.
It's right up there with "Use My Back, Victim." The smirk that Schwarzenegger does there. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing. I do quite like this bloke. I mean, I didn't really rate him in The Office and all of that. Like, I know they gave him a storyline with Aaron and all of that, but I do quite like him as an actor. I hope he goes on to some other things. He probably even has, but I'm not really an avid moviegoer these days. And without a doubt, the most memorable, probable death of the film, outside of the sister.
Yeah. Oof.
Like, that's like right out of Final Destination. Yeah, I mean, all it was missing was that line, just drop fucking dead. Yeah, I love that, and just walk out with it. Yeah, and the fact that Lizzie just burrows into the building like that,
Yeah,
it's just
that was
so
another cool
cool.
moment.
You know, it was like Shockwave, but awesome. And pounding on the actual like roof and bringing the building down like that. Like this, all of this is literally straight out of the game. You know, living in this world of it's got to respect the source material and all of that. Like, you can't get more bang on point than what you're seeing now.
Yeah, and I can't get over how tall that building is. It is just incredible.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna totally rip a building down, you want your money's worth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so as long as it's the biggest fucking thing in the city, yep,
Yeah.
bring it down. But what I mean is, like, it's got, like, it had zany characters in the twins and all of that, but if this was an over-the-top, cartoonistic, sort of self-aware, like, The Rock would have said something like timber when the building came down. You know? Like, it doesn't do anything dumb like that. Like, it has fun, but it's not stupid. And, like, the leveling of the building coming down in layers, like, all of that is, yeah, again, as you were saying, like, there's a lot of stuff that's, like, straight out of the video game there. I still can't get over the size of Ralph. There's a little subtle thing here that George is the smallest out of the three of them.
Yeah, that's correct. And Lizzie's obviously the largest. I forget what Ralph's.
I was meant to make a mention of that when Ralph and George were running across the bridge, but you can see it now on top of the building there, that George, yeah. And I suppose having the one now that's the protagonist of the three of them, I mean, you want to keep the pressure on, so the other two are physically bigger than him.
Yeah. Yeah, George is the smallest. I think his full height in his final mutated form is 35 feet tall.
Yeah. I just love the fact that Ralph is just there for the sake of it. Like, it's just so cool. Oh, well, not for the sake of it, sorry. That radar dish was on top of the tower, and that's what attracted them all to the city anyway.
Yeah,
so this was, yeah.
Lizzie is 50 feet tall, and I think Ralph, his final mutated form, clocked in at 45 feet.
Yeah, he's bigger than George, but not by... Like, there's more mass on Ralph than on George, that's for sure. He's got a bit more on the gut.
Yeah, and it was a deliberate choice by the filmmakers. They didn't want them Godzilla-esque size, they're not like 100 feet tall.
Well, no, they're big enough to scale a building and stand on it, whereas Godzilla will just knock a building over. So I'm glad that they didn't do that. That was a very good choice, because they're not that big.
Yeah.
I mean, they're big for what they are, but they're not. Yeah, they're not gargantuan like Gigantor.
Yeah, like, Gigantor.
Which I always thought that was a slip of the tongue. Yeah, for now, Gigantor. Yeah, or Tease. And I love the kind of ash falling like snow. You know, it's funny. The kind of the fallout before the real kind of final battle. People throw shade at Man of Steel for the let the children die. My kind of chuckle moment was Superman and Lois in a destroyed kind of crater like this that we're seeing these two in now, and they decide to patch up.
Yeah, that film has some problems. We'll get to it one day. It's coming.
I just can't help but think another director would have fucked this and just have The Rock and Naomi start pashing up. Like, the fight's not over yet. What the fuck you doing?
It's just the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
So now we got George back. We got the home team together again. Which is, and also a lot of his growth, like his mutations and all that, happened while they weren't working together and while George was going berserk. So it's awesome that we get him back to how he was when all of his growth is done.
Yeah.
So he's now, I mean, everyone likes to say coming full circle, but what they're referencing has only done a 180. But
yes, that's all.
So we're back to where we've begun now. So we've got all of the increases and none of the drawbacks now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stealth bomber. It's taken its sweet ass time getting there.
Yeah.
Like, it took off like the night before. Yeah, and I love this gear, and I love this. Like, get the China Lake out, all this. I mean, you've said before you're a big fan of the armoring up.
Yeah, I always look for this scene. I have a lot of fun with those scenes, the arming up scenes.
Yeah, just get the ammo belt over the shoulder. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. And just to go back to your what you'd make George an albino so you can show the blood on the white fur and all of that. I love how they've even gone out of their way to add in all of the soot.
Yeah.
Like, his fur is very dirty. So in a roundabout way, you did get a George looking like he does in the video game. Like, he looks like he stepped out of the video game there because his fur's all dirty.
Yeah, well, it began life as a practical problem. Yeah, with the blood not being very pronounced on a black or brown covered fur. But they also did like some mock-ups and tests of George standing in the city with the destruction during pre-visualization, and it was a request by the director, as we get this awesome comment here, to make him albino, and that was clearly the standout image compared to the traditional sort of gorilla silverback, sort of more realistic look, and it was just a really powerful image with the albino standing out. Again, it really helps that it's in daylight, and they were very keen on having it set during the day. So so what started out as a practical problem becomes like the iconic image of the movie, that with George standing in the cityscape, in the ruined cityscape with the Rock in front of him. I mean, that became the sort of central image of the whole story.
I love how it's not pulling any punches now, how it takes out Ralph. But having said that, Lizzie takes out Ralph. Ralph almost took out George there. Like, because you got to remember, after the rampage that they just went on and got on top of the building, like, George is in a pretty spent state right now. He's in no condition to be picking fights. So Ralph almost took him out right then and there if it wasn't for Davis.
Yeah, and I love that moment. Just when you think George has got the upper hand,
it fucking flies.
Yeah, it spouts its wings and lands back on all four.
Yeah, it can fly. It's like, and the wings are like, it's almost like a sugar glider.
Yeah, it's this sort of
flying fox. Yeah.
Yeah, the webbing.
Yeah. Yeah, this ugly bitch. Which is what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, Shelob should not look like a beautiful fallen elf angel like what they're doing in the video games. She should look like an ugly, rotten, 1,000-year-old spider. And, like, Lizzie should not look attractive, and this is what I'm talking about. And that running sequence, running on the side of the building that's upturned and all of that, I loved all of that, and the eye shot.
Yeah, stalking him from below.
Yeah, that kind of continuous sequence. I love it when guys just can't catch a break in the final battle. Like, this guy has gone through absolute hell and just nothing is going his way at all. I mean, you gotta pile it on. Yeah, you see how she's got like this Dilophosaurus frill? They're almost like petals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Cop that. And I love that, picking up like a semi-trailer and using it as a weapon.
Yeah, this is all great stuff.
Yeah, like I know some people, when Ralph was their favourite, a lot of them didn't like the fact that he kind of went out the way that he did. Well, what more was there kind of left for him to do?
Yeah.
I mean, because there's no way you were gonna get him fighting for the cause now, were you? I mean, and the real star of the show is George.
Yeah, that's right. That's who we're invested in the most.
Yeah, that's right. See, like, and that's George there on Lizzie's head. He's not bigger than her head. Like her jaw span there. I love the physicality where the villain is just this brute force.
Yeah,
And she's losing teeth as the fight goes on, which is really cool. Did you see that just before? Like, just chunks of teeth just fall out of her mouth when George smacked her? Yeah.
Yeah, and by this point in the film, she's about 200 feet long. So,
Well, look at the tail. Like, the tail is still back to where George turned back to normal, and her head's all the way over here now. I wonder why what got them to settle on this. Like, why Lizzie being the overall like arcing threat of the entire film. I wonder why or how they came to that, because that was pretty interesting. That
yeah, probably.
Yeah, crocodile's probably the most vicious, and it's a lizard, and the serpent, that kind of thing. And she's just fucking badass.
she's lost both of her tusks now as well from all the fighting and all of that. You can see the curved horn on the right side's completely gone now.
Yeah.
Like, not shying away from the damage
Oof.
that these things get. Considering she just bit Ralph's head off, like, I'm surprised that didn't just take George's arm off there. Like, you can really buy the direness of this confrontation here.
Yeah.
Like, when people say, oh, I need to feel stakes about the characters, it's the conflict and the emotion, what more do you want? She just bit a wolf's head off and almost took George's arm off. Like, I'm pretty invested in... Like, I was fully expecting George to die as well by the end of this. When they play the false death card and he is still alive...
that was
like, I was quite shocked by that. Like, I honestly thought that they committed to killing all three of them.
Yeah, it's one of the best moments in the film. It's coming up shortly, and we'll talk about it more. But yeah, I'm just thinking, what the fuck? How it leans into the overly sentimental music.
It really plays it, eh? Fucking hell.
One brief moment, it fucking is a Daniel Day-Lewis film. I'm thinking, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I was watching that when I was watching it with my nephew. He was just like, George can't be dead. What the fuck is this? Like, I knew it was coming though. But
Yeah.
I when I first saw this, they leant so far into that. Like, I thought that they did flat out, because it kind of made sense to kill the three of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fuck this. I love the close shots and the... Oh, yeah, it's just a real kind of... I mean, you can imagine, like, the rotten breath that she has. This time, I think you'll get my point. Yeah, like, just you can just imagine. Like, I love seeing the visuals of the inside of Lizzie's mouth. You could imagine just how rotten and stinking and smelly and disgusting and vile the inside of her mouth is. Oh, Yeah, this moment here. I mean, tug on the. Oh yeah, a little detail there. I love Lizzie's tongue hanging out the side of her mouth. She's doing a Snoke. It's like just. Yeah, that's gonna be my new hungover face there. The tongue just hanging out.
Yeah, I'm talking about the girl that's had a few too many.
Yeah, just. Yeah, cop that. Yeah, and like you can see the damage here, like yeah, the slumping down and all of that. I don't think anyone has sold a moment this well since Tommy Jane in Deep Blue Sea when Sam Jackson dies.
Yeah, for a weird second, I thought the film had totally lost the plot.
I love how the stealth bomber flies over, like it gets there when everything's over.
Yeah, I should have been onto it, but it does get you when he's looking around at all the people and the debris and that sad music kicks in. It just seemed so bizarre and out of place. Like for a second, you're watching a completely, totally, tonally different movie, and as it turns out, it's just George fucking with him.
You know,
it was such a great, well done gag.
The moment that sells it for me is when George kind of just slumps over and goes limp, and The Rock and Naomi walk off into the crowd and start like organizing supplies and all of that with all the other survivors, and George's dead body is in the background, and like how it kind of does this and then it moves on, and like the way that it just moves on from George, I thought, fuck. See, if you're really going to screw with someone, yeah, you've got to make them work for it a little bit, don't you? I wonder if anyone downvoted the film because this moment caught them. I'm sure there's some people out there that were a bit salty that they got fucked with like that. Like, I don't mind filmmakers screwing with me like that. I think it's pretty cool. Like, if they've got it worked out in their mind.
Yeah.
You know, and this was definitely... Like, especially, look at the way Jeffrey Dean Morgan sells this. Jesus Christ.
Everyone plays their part perfectly here to get this moment. And, yeah, this here, it's
such a touching moment. You can't believe... Like, everyone crushes this.
How do they not just crack up themselves is amazing.
I wonder how many takes this took to get right. Or, you know what I think? I think no one told them about it, and that in their versions of their script and their character lines, George does die, but then they call them back for a pickup, and then they filmed the gag part so they could get the genuine acting out of him. Like, they weren't... I believe, my theory is these three weren't even on board with it because they didn't know about it. They were acting out a death scene. And then when they were done filming and they got the take, was when they told him, well, actually, he's still alive.
Yeah. And this sequence here, this belongs in a different movie. Like,
yeah, this is the moment. Yeah.
I'm thinking, this is what I thought. They've completely screwed this. They've lost the plot completely.
Yeah, like, you gotta contemplate the sophisticality of life and all this, and Lizzie's dead body in the background. It's clearly a tee-up, though. Like, it's like what you were saying. All of the evidence was there.
He's pretending to be dead.
Yeah, he's pretending to be dead. Yeah, like that is right up there with Ted, I'm dying.
Yeah, Ted, I'm dying.
Yeah, Ted, I'm dying. Oh my god. I'm not dying, man. Oh, Chris Elliott, by the way, needs to be punched in the cock for that. Like rolling the tear and all of that. Ted, I'm dying. Like, what possesses someone to pull it? Just to tie it back into George, what possesses someone to pull a fucking joke like that on their best mate? God, if one of my mates did that to me, I'd punch him the fuck out. Jeffrey Dean Morgan
likes it.
Yeah. I love the half stop sign in the background. And like, I love that just walking around, just sort of, you know, I love when the big battle is done and all of that. Like, nothing's fixed yet. Everything is still fucked. But you can have that kind of breath, relax, chill. Like that,
Yeah.
like it's downhill from here. Kind
Yeah.
of, I love that. You don't get that in a lot of these kind of extravaganzas anymore. Like, I remember this was something that really pissed me off with Transformers Dark of the Moon. They're having this massive final battle in Chicago, and then the film just, like, the credits just start rolling. Like, what the fuck? Well, like, there was
Yeah.
no cooldown at all. No, I quite enjoyed going back and checking this one out. I like films that are there. What's the saying? It's there for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah, yeah, like I mentioned, I didn't I missed this the first time around. I really kind of regret that I did, but I've watched it a couple of times over the last week or so, and
Rampage.
yeah, it's I've really had some fun with it. It's and another comment that gets leveled at it back in the day was it was pointless, it was unnecessary, and I hear that comment and criticism about a couple of films, and it's always kind of bemused me.
Mate, everything released over the last 20 years has been fucking useless and never needed to happen. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
and yeah, but it's funny what gets singled out. It's you know, like Avatar 2 in particular got singled out with that. It's completely pointless. It's unnecessary. Why does it need to get made? Now, excuse me while I go watch Thor 4. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Dominion sucks. Oh, but that Endgame, though.
yeah, it's like I think you lose the right to kind of make that. Well, like I think movie critics and movie fans, they lose the right to sort of question the point of things if we're going to go. I mean, we don't need 30 Marvel movies. We don't need 11 Fast and Furious movies. But that criticism never gets leveled at them. Like, I think the first Fast and Furious movie was the best one, and that was a Point Break remake, you know. So it's just, it's very peculiar to me why this criticism gets leveled at some movies and not others. And yeah, this one, it got leveled at. Like, it was just pointless and unnecessary. Literally everything involved in popular culture is pointless and unnecessary and doesn't need to be made.
Well, that's why I like to level that, because what I do when I hear these sort of claims being made, I like to lobby it against something that's well and truly beloved in pop culture. Like when they say, "Oh, Rampage was totally unnecessary, didn't need to be made." Well, neither did Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Yeah, like the first
Neither did
film had,
Aliens. You
yeah,
know.
it had tied everything up perfectly.
You know, well, that's what I like to do. Is I like to turn it back on them. Like they say, "Oh, it was just a soft reboot, a remake of the original. Wasn't that good?" Well, that's exactly what Judgment Day was. That's exactly what Aliens was. Like, what's your point? So
Yeah,
when you turn it on something that's beloved and something that doesn't receive as much criticism, suddenly we start hearing a lot of umming and ahhing. And
yeah, to me, it's a really silly criticism. Because, yeah, you could point like you just did, like you can point to anything and question the point of it getting made. So it's a really silly um, criticism I find that gets leveled at these sorts of things.
yeah, but you know, it's I don't know. I think
Particularly when often these same people will wander into a completely different thread and say how excited they are for Captain America 4 coming out. I mean, well, like those three movies are really high quality. Like, I don't think a fourth one is going to add anything to it. Does it really need to be made? I'm skeptical.
well,
So
another thing as well is that like they'll see trailers for these movies coming out and they'll say, "Oh, this is going to be it. This is going to be the return to form." I don't think cinema is anywhere near as shit as what people say that it is. I'm not quite an avid goer anymore, though I'd like to like it to be a bit more of a regular habit. Like they'll, yeah, it's bizarre how they do that, and yeah, there's a lot of strange misconceptions going around. But I suppose that's what happens when all you've got to bring to the table is just tearing shit apart and all of that.
Yeah, I think modern technology has really ruined a lot of movie discourse. I don't believe these things were meant to be scrutinized and picked apart to the level that they are. It's like that legendary Marlon Brando comment. Like, look, does this script make any goddamn sense at all? No, it doesn't. Don't worry about it.
That's why I remember hearing Zelda Dungeon say a similar thing. They used to have a mailbag like a fucking decade ago, and one of the questions they got was, when Link uses a small key in a dungeon, how come the small key disappears? This is one of those, it's just a video game answers. Guys, there's no fucking reason as to why it happens. It's like a criticism I hear getting lobbied against a lot of films is, this needs to happen for the plot to happen. Let me explain something to you real quick. Every single fucking movie ever created, ever edited, ever put out in a theater, anything, directed, every single bit of cinema ever made, everything in the plot happens because it needs to happen. It's like, well, why did Skynet send 2 back in time and not mention anything about the other one? Because T2 needs to happen.
Yeah.
Again,
right.
when you lobby it against a film that's beloved, and I like using Terminator 2 as the example, suddenly we start umming and ahhing and we're trying to explain it. It needs to happen or that film doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid. But you can't have a conversation with people like that because they're not interested in discourse. Like, they don't want to know. Their entire, in most cases, their entire livelihood depends on being against you.
Yeah.
So you're never going to convince someone that a movie's good. My final thought, while the credits are wrapping up, I'm going to say this. I see a lot of people saying, because I fell into a thread talking about Jurassic World in 2015 is a great movie, and I'm tired of pretending that it isn't. And they started it off by saying, let me preference that nothing will be better than the original Jurassic Park. And the first thing that was pointed out was, don't ever preference it like that. If you like Jurassic World, say you like it. Don't even mention the first film. Like, if you enjoyed that movie, say you like it. Screw them. You don't have to protect their feelings by saying the first one's the best. No. If you like that film, say you like that film. If you like Rampage, you like Rampage. Don't say, oh, well, it's not going to win over Godzilla fans. No, it's not trying to. If you like that film, you say you like that film. Don't preface it. No, you like that film. Stand up for yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it was the guys on Bloke in a Bar were talking about that, and I think they got it from, I think, Taylor Swift of someone, of all people, where, like, there's nothing. You're a pretty sad individual, like the worst of the worst, if you're gonna hate someone for liking something. It's it's really sad and pathetic. It really is. And yeah, and I think I find myself drawn to Rampage. Yeah, and just to sort of come full circle on the point I made a little while ago about, I no longer look at turn your brain off and enjoy entertainment as a negative thing anymore, because you can get that balance where it's good to just put something on and just sort of watch it and not have to think too much. It doesn't automatically make it bad, because you can get a balance now. You can watch something like Rampage, but I can also watch something like True Detective or Twin Peaks or something where you've got to be switched on and absorbed and engaged. Otherwise you're going to miss something important. And then you do have the sort of popcorn, big blockbuster efforts of Rampage, and they can exist totally in harmony, and I'm totally fine with both, with enjoying both of them.